Hello everyone, my name is Amanda and welcome to my channel. I hope that you are all good. In today's video we are going to be doing a Sims 4 speed build and we're going to be building a gardener's tiny home. So I had this picture saved of this little house that had kind of like this cute little garden to the side, and it just reminded me of maybe someone who really loves doing their garden and growing vegetables and lots of plants and flowers and things like that. But it was just a small home and it reminded me of something that would be really fun to play in The Sims 4, as gardening's quite a big thing I suppose in The Sims. So I thought I would jump into my game and build a actual tiny home for inspired for a gardener. So here we are. As you can see, it's a really simple shell, so it's come together very quickly. I decided to add on this little overhang for the porch and kind of make this like a little pergola style with some flowers on the top of it, and I thought that looked quite cute, kind of added a little bit of charm to the house because it's a very simple shell of exterior. And then a lot of the detail is in the garden. It was kind of like quite fun and easy to do. These are kind of like my comfort builds when I open my game, as I love building tiny homes. When I copied a lot of the style for the real life house that I had for this image, and then when I was building it, for some reason I'd open my game and I jumped into Henford-On-Bageley, and I thought this little plot or this lot here would be perfect for this. It's 1 Cobblebottom Street. I can't remember off the top of my head the size of this lot, but then as the style of the house was coming together, I felt as though I should have maybe built this in Willow Creek, because it would just suit Willow Creek a little bit more. So the picture I had was just literally the front of the house, so I had to kind of imagine what I would do with the back, but it's only quite small anyway, so it was really easy to do. But I did decide out back to put like a little bonfire area, as I remember when I was younger and I used to go to my dad's allotment, having a bonfire was quite a big thing for some reason, so I thought that that would be fun to add in. But here we are, I'm just raising up these low-lying bushes to sit on top of that enclosed porch bit, and I really loved how the porch turned out. It felt like a really nice space that you could sit. But I'm going to go in and do something a little bit different. Usually I get my shell done, I do a little bit of landscaping, and I come back and do the garden at the end of the build. But because I felt as though a lot of this build was about the garden, I decided to come in and do the garden first. So we have that little fenced off patch where we've placed down some different coloured bushes, and then I do come back and add some more to that. But I went in with my terrain paint to make it look as though the plants are planted down into the soil, and then I jumped in to debug and pulled out this fencing because, like I said, I felt as though this house had more of a Willow Creek vibe to it, so I wanted to try and make it fit in Henford-On-Bageley a little bit more. And as you can see on the surrounding lots, they have this fencing which isn't in the main catalogue, but it is in debug. So I grabbed this out, and there's some different size pieces, so it's really easy to put together and kind of make it fit to the house or the lot that you're wanting to, which is something I do love about using a lot of the debug items. So I've gone around majority of the lot pretty much with that fence, or kind of like it's like a brick wall. And then on this little section here, I decided to just leave this open, and then this is where I end up popping down the bonfire. But for now I've just popped down some bushes and low-lying grass and things like that, just to kind of fill in the space. And then I'm just jumping around backwards and forwards in the garden. This is where I decided to come in and add in some lavender bushes as well, because I love lavender in real life, so I always try and include them in my gardens. And then we're going to jump back to the porch. So we do get all of the exterior done before we move on inside. But in the picture I had, you had a kind of like a corner sofa, and there wasn't one in the game that I had that suited that, so I ended up merging these two sofas together to make that corner L-shaped sofa. And then I loved this coffee table, but I sized it down because I do feel as though a lot of the coffee tables in The Sims feel massive, and when you're building tiny homes I feel like it's really hard to place them down. So I ended up sizing this one down, and I do that with a lot of items, end up either sizing them up or down. It can be a little bit annoying when it comes to cluttering them, but I worked around that, which we'll talk about when we get to it. But I'm going in and just popping some clutter down here and there, and this is where it kind of inspired me for this build, the sim that I imagined living here, I kind of imagine she loves going around shops, kind of like secondhand stores, charity shops, picking things up, like really random things. And that's like kind of her style. She doesn't necessarily aim or vibe towards one particular look. She just, if she likes something, she buys it, and it doesn't matter if it matches the rest of her home, because she's not all about everything being matchy or aesthetic kind of thing. So when I was placing down little random things here, you'll see like we've got some modern style pots, but then we've also got the pot where it looks as though the pot's kind of broken, and little things like that. And I really loved how it all come together. And in my head, I could just kind of imagine this really quirky, fun person who just buys lots of random things. And although she's only got a small home, I did try to fit as much kind of like random clutter here and there in the build as well. But we're going to move on to the garden now. So I wanted to have some more flowers and bushes along one side, but I did predominantly want a lot of this garden to kind of be like allotment style, so we can grow fruit and vegetables, which is quite fun and can be quite lucrative in The Sims as well. So I started off by placing down the planter boxes. We do change these, but then I also wanted to make sure I got some of the oversized garden plots as well. And then I'm just framing them in with some bushes so they don't kind of look like they've just randomly been plonked there. And then I wanted to have a variety of the planter boxes. So I got these more modern looking ones from Eco Lifestyle and placed them down in the middle as well. And then I thought the flower arranging table would be perfect for the sim that was living here as well. And then I did originally place the beehive next to that, and then I kind of just thought that in real life that would be a bit annoying, I feel. So I moved that over to the other side, and here you can see I've just picked out that barrel with the little rabbit on it, because again it just kind of looks like little random knickknacks. And then I'm doing the same. I wanted to make sure that there was just lots of bits and bobs around. I love these kind of like little tree things. I don't know if they have any gameplay attached to them, but I thought they would work. I thought sprinklers would be a necessity for a garden sim, so I placed down a couple of those. This autumn leaf pile is just making me wish that we were heading into autumn, but we're kind of like in the middle of summer in the UK, which I am loving, but I can't wait for autumn. But I placed down that autumn leaf pile because I kind of just imagined she keeps her garden very tidy, and there's this little space where she rakes all the leaves too, so it just worked. And then as you see there, I placed down the bonfire there as well, as I felt as though it was just such a good little add-on. And then usually I would come and do my terrain painting at the end, because I know there's been a bit of an ongoing glitch in The Sims where if you do your terrain painting and then save and leave your game, when you come back to it, all the terrain paint has disappeared. But I took the risk and I put it down because I really just wanted to see how the garden looked and how it come together. And it is only a small garden, but I really loved how it turned out, and especially where you've got this kind of like messier section out the back as well. I kind of just imagined that's where she dumps all her rubbish and things like that from the garden. I did also add in the vertical planter. It doesn't match the build necessarily because it looks a little bit too modern, but like I said, I just imagine that she picks up things because she likes them and doesn't necessarily worry if they match. And it was another space that you can grow things in as well. Moving on to inside of the house, it's a very small, it's not a tiny home, like I think it's still a tier 3, but a lot of the tiles were taken up as well by that wraparound porch, so we don't exactly have loads of tiles on the inside, so it's quite a small space. So when you walk in through the front door, you've kind of got this really cozy living space. So I managed to pop a little 2-seater sofa in that alcove, and then that fit perfectly. And then I just used these cabinets and kind of like merged them together to make this corner unit. I do end up adding on a 4th one as well, as I quite like the style to these, and I feel as though you can fit these in most builds. And then I've got some books on there, a candle. I really loved the whole vibe with the curtain, so I've popped, I think this curtain's actually designed to be used on the lower half of the windows, but I've put it in the upper half on this particular one, and then just put the ivy leaves growing around it. And I do that on one of the other windows as well. I think it's in the bedroom, and I just really love how it looks because I really imagine this sim as someone who loves anything planty, anything garden like, so she's bringing the outdoors in as much as she can for such a small home. So having those going around the windows I thought looked quite nice. And then the kitchen area is quite small as well, but I did manage to fit in an island counter with 2 chairs. Now I only actually imagined one sim living here, but if you wanted, I suppose you could make it a couple. Just in the bedroom I placed down a pet bed, and that does stop one side of the bed being used. So if you was living here with 2 sims, you might want to delete that bed. But yeah, the kitchen come together quite nicely for such a small space. I decided to put this tiled splashback from Parenthood in and just edging it off with some columns, because I hate how it looks. It matched this wallpaper quite nicely, but I hate how it looks where the tiles just end. I need to have something there. So I used some columns to create an edging, and then I was just going with the flow, filling up the kitchen, and it was pretty full when I remembered that I hadn't placed down a fridge. So I decided to swap out this sink that I was using and pop a fridge over in that corner as well, because I did really want the cabinet with the kettle to stay, as I did just imagine that this is a sim who loves to sit down with a cup of tea. And then because there wasn't much space to add down any of this random clutter that I imagined in my head, I popped down these 2 shelving units. I love the little basket one because it looks so random on the wall, and then I just filled it up with a bunch of random clutter. I had decided that I wanted this household to have a little dog, so I popped down a little bed and a food bowl as well, but I didn't pop down anything else for pets. So if you don't want to play with pets in the game, you've not got much to have to delete, and if you do want to play with them, you've still got some space to pop down some other bits that you might want to add in. But we're then going to move on into the bedroom, and I placed down, like I said, a double bed so that a couple could live here. And then I decided to swap out these upper cabinets and go with these ones from Dream Home Decorator. I feel as though they just give a very built-in wardrobe look, and I like the way it adds a little bit more to the room, especially when you're only working with a small bedroom. And then I did it very similar with the curtains, but I think I've used the curtains on how they should be done on the lower. They're kind of like cafe net curtains, I believe, and they should be used on the lower portion of the window. And then I've gone in again with those ivy plants hanging around the window, because I absolutely love how they look, especially up against all the neutrals in this room. Now this side, the left hand side of the bed, when I was playtesting, it was the little cat bed that ends up being in the way. So if you do want to use that side of the bed, then you just need to delete the little cat bed. I couldn't find anywhere else to place it because it just seemed to cause issues wherever I placed it down, but I really wanted there to be a cat bed in the bedroom. And then we're just going to finish off by adding in the light over there, and there's not much else I really add to that room because it is quite small. And again, for the bathroom, it was a very small bathroom, so I placed down a shower and just tried to squeeze in everything that you would need to make the build playable. And then this does pretty much bring us on towards the end of the video. I do actually jump back to the kitchen and we add in some more clutter because I was looking at it and I felt as though it just looked a little bit too plain. So I added a picture on the wall, and then we're going to add down a few more little clutter bits. But as you can see, I really don't add too much into the bathroom. I wanted to make sure there was a few little random bits, so I ended up with going with this piece of wall art and just sizing it down because it gave off planty vibes with the leaves, and then just adding some wall lights either side of that. And I kind of went with this quite antique bronzy gold look in the bathroom, and this is probably the room that's the most matchy out of all of them, but I liked how it all come together. And then this is where I'm just going to jump back into the kitchen. I don't know what made me not really finish it off when I was doing it, but I remembered to place down the smoke alarm, the burglar alarms, and then I just placed down this little piece of wall art, some saucepans, and then again just some random little knickknacks that I kind of just imagined would be picked up secondhand. Then that does bring us to the end of the build, so I will leave you with the screenshots. Thank you all so much for watching. If you'd like to download this build, it is available on the Sims 4 gallery. If you're loving my videos, I would really appreciate it if you hit that subscription button. But once again, thank you all so much for watching. Lots of love. Take care. Bye bye.